TIFU by taking a laxative before a long flight thinking it was a vitamin. I made a huge mistake that quite literally blew up in my face. Well, not my face, but you get the idea. This actually happened yesterday, and I'm still reeling and recovering. So I, 28M, was flying from London to Los Angeles for a really important business trip. I have a job interview with a big tech company. It's basically the opportunity of a lifetime for me, the kind of interview I've been working toward for years. I was determined to make a great impression. Naturally, I was super nervous and distracted while packing in the morning. I have this daily routine of taking a multivitamin before I start the day. My roommate also keeps his supplements in the same cabinet, and unbeknownst to me, he had recently bought a bottle of extra-strength laxatives. Long story, something about a better diet I didn't ask. In my frazzled state, I grabbed what I thought was my vitamin pill from the cabinet and swallowed it with my OJ as I rushed out the door to the airport. I did notice it was a slightly different color than usual, but I was in such a hurry I didn't give it a second thought. Big mistake. Huge. Cut to me in the plane, an hour or so after takeoff. It's a packed 11-hour flight, and I'm in a middle seat in economy. Of course I am. I had a light breakfast at home, and then ate an airport sandwich right before boarding. I figured I'd try to sleep through most of the flight to be well rested for my interview the next day. The guy in the aisle seat, let's call him Dan, seemed friendly. He mentioned he was heading home to LA after a business trip. We chatted briefly about the long flight and then settled in. The lady by the window was already in eye mask and headphones mode, so I didn't bother her. I'm drifting off, headphones on, when I feel a slight gurgle in my stomach. Uh-oh. But at this point, it's just a minor rumble. I try to ignore it, chalking it up to pre-flight nerves or that mediocre egg mayo sandwich. About 30 minutes later, that minor rumble has evolved into full-blown Kraken-level stomach churns. I'm starting to sweat a little. There's this growing pressure in my lower abdomen that is becoming harder and harder to ignore. I shift uncomfortably, trying to distract myself with a movie. Suddenly, a sharp cramp hits, and I realize with dawning horror what's about to go down, or rather, come out. I frantically unbuckle my seatbelt, mumble an apology to the two people sitting on either side of me as I clamber over them. I'm in the middle, remember, and make a beeline for the toilet at the back of the plane. Of course, because life is like this, there's a flight attendant with a beverage cart coming down the aisle right at that moment. I end up doing this awkward little dance behind the cart, kind of hopping from foot to foot, with what I'm sure was a crazed expression on my pale, sweaty face. The flight attendant notices my distress and asks if I'm okay. I whisper in a strained voice, "Bathroom! Emergency!" She looks sympathetic, but the cart is literally blocking the entire aisle, and she can't exactly make it disappear. Those probably 30 seconds that it took for her to maneuver it to a spot where I could squeeze by felt like hours. I was literally prancing in place, clenching with every ounce of strength. I might have whimpered, I'm not sure. I remember blurting out, "I'm so sorry, I really have to. I have to go," and she finally pushes the cart enough for me to sideways shuffle past. I bolt to the lavatory, slam the door, and almost yank the toilet off the floor as I drop my pants down and plant myself on that throne. And then, well, I'll spare you the most graphic details. But let's just say the gates of hell opened. It was explosive. Think volcano meets tsunami. The sound, oh God. I was glad the jet engines were loud, because the output of my efforts was not exactly subtle. I'm pretty sure at one point I was loudly praying to any deity who might listen to just end me right there. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably 5 to 6 minutes, the initial wave subsided. I was drenched in sweat and absolutely mortified, but immensely relieved to have made it in time, this round at least. I cleaned myself up as best I could, doused my face in water, and shakily returned to my seat. The people I climbed over earlier gave me polite, thin-lipped smiles. They definitely heard/smelled something. Their faces said it all. I mumbled another apology and sank into my seat, trying to make myself as small as possible. I thought that might be the end of it, but nope. Laxatives don't just trigger one and done. No, they like to toy with you in cycles. So about 30 minutes later, my stomach gurgles again, warning me that round 2 was imminent. I swear softly under my breath. The man in the aisle seat next to me looks over, probably noticing my distress. I can't even make eye contact. Round 2 comes on faster and more furious than the first. I barely managed to leap over my poor seatmates a second time. In the process, I elbow Dan's cup of Coke right into his lap. I hear him shout in surprise, but I can't stop now. I practically body slam the occupied bathroom door, realize it's locked, and let out what must have sounded like a dying animal's groan. There are 2 lavatories at the back. The other one thankfully opens up just then, and a guy steps out. I don't even give him time to exit fully. I kind of shove past him with a panicked, "I'm sorry, and lock myself in. Cue Volcano 2, the eruption strikes back. It was somehow even worse. My guts were twisting, contracting, expelling everything I have ever eaten since childhood. At one point, I swore I saw my soul leave my body. The smell was ungodly, like a dead animal mixed with rotten eggs, and pure evil. I felt bad for anyone waiting outside, and yes, a line had formed because apparently I'd picked the worst time, right after a meal service, for my gastrointestinal meltdown. Midway through this second ordeal, someone banged on the door and groaned, "Come on, hurry up in there," which only amplified my humiliation. I croaked back, "Sorry, just a minute," in a voice that hardly sounded human. When I finally dared to emerge after cleaning up round two's fallout, there was indeed a small queue of very unhappy-looking passengers outside the lavatory. I avoided all eye contact, absolutely dying of shame. I scurried back to my seat again. I heard a kid a few rows back loudly whisper, "Mom, what is that smell?" and wanted to evaporate on the spot. In that moment, I half wished I could just open the emergency exit and hurl myself out at 35,000 feet to escape. Back at my seat, I spent a few minutes breathing slowly, convinced that my insides surely had nothing left to give. I was so wrong. Maybe 40 minutes later, right as I start to feel a rumble signaling the approach of round 3, the captain turns on the fasten seatbelt sign. We've hit some turbulence over the Atlantic. Oh, perfect. I look down the aisle. The flight attendants have buckled into their jump seats. The same sympathetic one who helped me earlier catches my eye and gives me a concerned, knowing look. I am officially in panic mode now. The turbulence isn't even that bad, but the seatbelt sign is on, and I know if I get up I could be in big trouble. My stomach, however, gives absolutely zero craps. Well, actually, it's giving all the craps, that's the problem. I realize I can't hold this one. Nature is screaming, and it will not be denied. I make a split-second decision and unbuckle, leaping up and dashing toward the back. I see the flight attendant who is seated mouth, "Oh no," as I run past. She shouts, "Sir, return to your seat." But it's too late. I'm already barreling down the aisle like my life depends on it. It kind of does in a way. I get to the lavatory door, no line this time, thank heavens, and go to yank it open, and at that exact moment, the plane jolts from turbulence. I stumble, lurching forward. My hand slips off the door handle, and I lose my balance. In that moment, my body just gives up. The floodgates open. I lose all control right there in the back of the plane, half falling against the lavatory door. Yes, it happened. I crapped my pants. Explosively. It was not a subtle, quiet thing either. I, sorry for the vivid imagery, felt it, heard it, and worse. Others heard it. Over the drone of a Boeing 777, I could swear people nearby heard the grotesque, wet squelch and my gasp of horror. Time slowed down. I was frozen in mortification. The turbulence continued to jostle the plane. And me? Which wasn't great given my newly soupy situation. I think I just whimpered in shock. The flight attendant, who had unbuckled when she saw me run, managed to get to me. She asked if I was okay, but then the smell hit and she just kind of stopped, mid-sentence, with this look of pity and mild nausea. I wanted to die. She quickly ushered me into the now empty lav, finally made it a few seconds too late. I locked eyes with her for a split second, and the look of pity on her face will be burned into my brain forever. She whispered, "Don't worry, I'll see if we have anything you can change into," and then shut the door behind me. I stood in the lavatory, in shock, looking at my soiled pants and underwear, which were a total lost cause. I did my best to clean myself up, using probably half a roll of toilet paper and a bunch of those little paper toilet seat covers as makeshift wipes. The turbulence made it feel like trying to wipe your butt while riding a roller coaster. A few minutes later, the flight attendant knocked and handed me a plastic bag for my ruined clothes and, bless her soul, a pair of those pajama-like pants from business class or first class, not sure which. They were about 2 sizes too big, but I tied the drawstring tight. I managed to gingerly remove and bag up my underwear and jeans, which were beyond salvation, and I put on the soft gray lounge pants. There was no hiding what had happened, but at least I had clean bottoms on. When I finally came out, I couldn't even look anyone in the eye. A couple of passengers glanced over, then quickly looked away. I shuffled back to my seat, red as a tomato, and just muttered, "Sorry," for the millionth time to my poor seat row companions. One of them kindly said, "Hope you feel better soon," which in some ways made it even more embarrassing, though I appreciate the sentiment. The rest of the flight, around 5 excruciating hours, was a special kind of hell. Mercifully, the laxatives seemed to have finally emptied me out after that catastrophic failure, so physically I was mostly okay. But mentally, I was just sitting there in a puddle of shame, acutely aware that I had become that passenger everyone would tell horror stories about. I stared at the back of the seat in front of me, avoiding all eye contact. I could feel the occasional stare or hear murmurs from nearby rows, which made me want to shrink into nothingness. The flight attendant occasionally checked on me, bringing me ginger ale and saying things like, "Hang in there." At one point she gently mentioned, "It happens more often than you'd think." I highly doubt my level of disaster is common, but I appreciated her kindness. She also discreetly gave me some sanitizing wipes for when we landed, which was a godsend. When we finally landed, they let most of the plane deplane before they gently shuffled me out, probably to spare me the gauntlet of stares. I could see the crew had put on gloves and were carrying biohazard bags toward my row. I wanted to apologize to them, but I just kept my head down and beelined off that plane. I still had to stumble through the airport in those oversized pajama pants to collect my checked luggage. Yes, I stood at the baggage carousel in stained sneakers and first-class loaner PJs, absolutely defeated. I'm pretty sure people gave me a wide berth after catching a whiff. I got to my hotel and spent at least an hour in the shower, scrubbing the shame and filth off me. I also had to call the front desk to request laundry service immediately, because no way I'm carrying those pants around in my luggage. It was only after I'd somewhat recovered that I checked my phone and saw a text from my roommate. "Bro, I think you took my laxative this morning. I'm so sorry. And also, please don't murder me." That's when the ugly puzzle pieces clicked together. I hadn't grabbed a vitamin at all. I'd basically drugged myself with a super-strength colon cleanse. Fantastic. I have never been so mortified in my life. And to top it all off, guess who has a crucial in-person interview tomorrow morning? That's right, this guy. I'm praying that whatever stomach trauma I put myself through has passed, and I can somehow present myself as a competent, professional human and not the dude who voided his bowels at 30,000 feet. TLDR. Mistook a powerful laxative for a vitamin before a long transatlantic flight. Ended up spending half the flight on the toilet and the other half sitting in my own crap. Ruined my clothes, my dignity, and possibly my upcoming job interview. Update 1. Posted the day after. Hey everyone. So, a lot of people were wondering how my big interview went after that flight fiasco. Buckle up for another round of cringe, because the universe wasn't done with me yet. First off, I showed up at the company's office, exhausted. I maybe got 2 hours of sleep after the whole incident. I was a bundle of nerves, but also trying to pep talk myself. You got this. Just be confident and pretend yesterday never happened. Easier said than done. They called me into a conference room for the first round of interviews. The door opens, I walk in, and who is the first person I see on the interview panel? Dan. Yes, that Dan. The friendly aisle seat guy from my flight, who had a front row seat to my airborne humiliation. I'm pretty sure my soul left my body for the second time in 24 hours. Dan's eyes went wide for a split second, so I knew he recognized me too. To his credit, he recovered quickly and greeted me with a professional handshake like we hadn't shared a traumatic experience in a metal tube the day before. I was internally dying. Here I am, about to be evaluated by someone who literally watched and smelled me lose control of my bowels. Fantastic. The interview begins, and I'm trying my absolute best to focus on the questions, but my mind keeps replaying flashes of that flight. I noticed Dan kind of avoiding eye contact more than the other interviewer. There were 2 people interviewing me in this first panel. Maybe he was trying not to embarrass me by staring? Or maybe he was just as mortified to be in this situation. About 10 minutes in, as I'm answering a technical question, I feel my stomach gurgle ominously. Not now, please, for the love of God, not now. I guess chugging all that post-flight Gatorade to rehydrate wasn't the smartest move, because my guts were still a bit upset. I try to power through, but I start stumbling over my words as I feel a wave of nausea and cramping. I could see Dan glancing at me with a concerned expression. He clearly recognizes the, "oh no, not again" face from yesterday. I had to pause mid-answer and very meekly ask, "I'm so sorry. Could I have a moment to use the restroom?" The other interviewer, an older gentleman, looked a bit surprised. Dan just sort of closed his eyes like he couldn't believe this was happening, but they nodded and said, "Sure, of course." So now I've become that candidate who interrupts his own interview for an emergency bathroom break. I rushed out and spent a good 5 minutes locked in their office bathroom, dry heaving and trying to calm my shaky gut. Thankfully, it was just anxiety and residual upset, nothing explosive. I splashed water on my face, gave myself a stern talk in the mirror. "Pull it together, man!" and eventually trudged back to the interview room. I apologized profusely for the interruption. They were polite about it, but I could feel the awkwardness in the air. I tried to salvage the rest of the interview, but let's be honest, the damage was done. I was sweaty, jittery, and my confidence was completely shot. I even blanked on a question I normally would have nailed, just because I couldn't stop wondering what Dan had told the other interviewer while I was gone. My paranoid imagination was picturing something like, "This is the guy the first told you about from the plane." The remaining interviews, there were 2 more segments with different team members, went okay-ish, I guess. I managed not to run out again, at least. But I was operating at like 50% brain capacity from stress and exhaustion. By the end of the day, I pretty much knew in my gut, which had finally quieted down now that it was too late, that I wasn't getting this job. Sure enough, I got the generic rejection email this morning. Thank you for your time, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates, blah blah. Can't say I'm surprised. Between being bathroom break guy and my not-so-stellar performance, it was a long shot. On the bright side, gotta find one, right? Dan actually caught me on the way out of the office after the last interview. I thought I saw him hovering as I spoke to the HR rep. He approached and quietly said, "Hey, rough day, huh? I just wanted to say I'm sorry about everything. That flight was the worst trip of my life, and I was just a bystander. I can't imagine how you feel." He said it with a little sympathetic wince. I was too embarrassed to do much except laugh awkwardly and mutter, "Yeah, not my finest hour." Dan gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder and said, "Take care, man." So at least there was some human decency and understanding there. He didn't have to acknowledge it at all, but he did, in a kind way. And no, he wasn't a deciding factor in the rejection. He actually told me before I left that he'd recused himself from the hiring decision because he felt he couldn't be objective. So I basically screwed that interview all on my own, no scapegoats available. I flew home last night, which was thankfully uneventful. Trust me, I took no chances. No vitamins of any kind. I barely ate. And I visited the airport bathroom like 4 times pre-flight, just in case. I was on high alert the whole time, but my digestive system mercifully behaved. Small favors. So yeah, lost out on the dream job, but at least I didn't literally die of embarrassment, which I came close to about a dozen times in the last 2 days. I'm back home, lying on my couch, rehydrating and trying to forget the fact that I am now immortalized in at least one corporate office as that candidate with the emergency. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look poor Dan in the face again if I ever cross paths with him in the industry, but I sent him a brief thank you email for being cool about everything. No reply yet, and I don't blame him. Thanks for all the support and laughs and secondhand embarrassment in the comments. It helped me feel a little less alone in my mortification. I'll update again if any other fallout, comes from this whole debacle. But I seriously hope this is the end of it. Update 2, final. Okay, I honestly hoped I'd never have to post again, but here I am because the universe has one more punchline for me. It's been about a week since the incident, and just when I thought I could start forgetting about it, I got a message from a friend. "Dude, you're famous." He sends me a link, and to my absolute horror, it's a TikTok video with over 2 million views captioned, "When the laxatives hit at 30,000 feet, I'll give you one guess what the content is." Yep, it's me, sprinting down the airplane aisle in sheer panic during round 3, and then an admittedly blurry shot of me standing in the back in utter defeat, probably the moment right after the Lotoval incident, when the flight attendant was ushering me into the lab. The text overlay on the video says, "Witnessed a guy literally **** himself on our flight. Felt bad, but it was like a comedy movie IRL. My heart about stopped." The friend who sent it, who had no idea it was me in the video at first, was like, "This is your flight, right? Is that you?" I had to sheepishly admit yes. He then proceeded to howl with laughter for a solid minute on FaceTime, while I sat there wanting to melt into my couch. From there, I fell into a social media rabbit hole. Big mistake. The video had spread to Twitter, Instagram, even a short clip on YouTube. The captions and comments were creative, to put it mildly. Bro turned the plane into his personal porta-potty skull. In-flight meal didn't agree with him or what? I was on this flight, can confirm the smell was next-level nauseated face. This is why you don't trust a fart on a plane, kids. Another friend joked that I'm now more famous for my bathroom habits than any professional achievement. Har har. Very funny. There were even memes. Someone set a clip of me hustling down the aisle to that Curb Your Enthusiasm theme music. Someone else dubbed over a National Geographic narrator voice, describing a wildebeest migration as I dashed for the bathroom. Creative, I guess, but oh my god, I have never experienced a cringe so deep in my soul. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I kinda did a bit of both. On one hand, seeing strangers on the internet riff about the airplane pooper, great, I have a legacy now, is mortifying. On the other hand, I mean, it is objectively a story fit for a comedy, when you remove my personal shame from the equation. I always wanted to go viral, but not for this. A few friends who know, the ones I told about the original incident, have been sending me every new reference they find. Thanks, guys, I get it. My own sister gleefully told me I'm now a cautionary tale on some travel blog she follows. Kill me now. Too late. A coworker slyly forwarded me a link to a news site that ran a blurb about it. Thankfully, it didn't name me, but still. I swear, if I see a headline like, "Passenger has unfortunate accident on transatlantic flight," I might actually change my name and move to a remote cabin. So yeah, That's the latest joy in this saga. It's not just the people on that plane or at that company that know about it. It's potentially anyone with an internet connection. I'm paranoid that my current boss, at the job I'm trying to leave, will see it and recognize me. Or that future potential employers will Google my name and somehow connect me to this. Is viral poop guy a fireable offense? Kidding. Mostly. I think I'm going to lay low from social media for a while and pray that the internet's attention span moves on to the next embarrassing thing. With my luck, though, this will become one of those infamous Reddit stories people tell for years. Remember the laxative plane guy? Ugh. At least here, I'm semi-anonymous. Throwaway account for the win. I feel a bit better having gotten the worst of it off my chest. No pun intended. A bunch of you have been weirdly supportive through my misery, and it helped me chuckle at the situation when I desperately needed to.